During the summers of 1933 and 1937, Pollock visited the Bentons for a few weeks at their second home on Martha's Vineyard. Despite Benton's contention that Pollock was happy there, Jackson also claimed this was the case in a letter to Becky Tarwater, his girlfriend for part of the time. His works created during these vacations looked nothing at all like what one would expect a young painter to create on hazy, warm days in New England, plein-air compositions of breaking waves, lighthouses, and sailboats. Instead, Pollock's depictions of Menashma Pond are nocturnal scenes, dark and macabre, like Ryder's moonlit marines. The deeply troubled presence of their author can be felt in the somber chiaroscuro and tortured impasto of the Menemsha paintings. Pollock's earliest self-portrait, which he painted sometime between 1930 and 1933, has been frequently compared with Ryder's. However, in many ways, his equally Ryderesque seascapes more accurately capture the feeling of isolation and anguish in these two men. In Benton's estimation, Jackson Pollock's first achievement as a painter was to have injected a mystic strain into the more generally prosaic characteristics of regionalism. Pollock's early oils, which fit thematically the designation American scene, all measure approximately 24 by 30 inches, the standard size required of painters working in the 1930s for the WPA. The fine arts projects of the Professional and Service Division of the Works Progress Administration, organized by Franklin Roosevelt in the fall of 1935, were set up to provide economic opportunities for a group especially hard hit by the Depression. After leaving the Art Students League, Pollock was unable to get any work except a janitorial job, which he shared with his brother Sandy at a children's school where Charles taught. Their income was so meager they had to supplement it by stealing from pushcarts. Following a brief stint cleaning statues for the Emergency Relief Bureau, Jackson passed certification for the WPA, proving he was a bona fide artist with no source of income, and although frequently disaffected from the kind of work he was supposed to do, he managed to stay on the WPA's payroll, except for a few short breaks, from August 1935 until its demise in 1942. He began in the mural division, which required long hours of on-site participation. Pollock soon managed to switch to the easel section, which required the submission of only one painting a month for allocation to a government building. Artists working for the WPA were not expected or encouraged to create technically innovative or strikingly original works. The approved style focused on representational subject matter, depicting local scenes, painted with very conventional color, modeling, and tone, and with simplified shape. Often, WPA artists try to express their sympathy and solidarity with other impoverished workers, and in Pollock's extant 24 by 30-inch canvases, such as Cotton Pickers, we can see how he attempted to fit that mold. Pollock's most interesting work of the mid-30s is a different size, however. WPA artists could do what they wanted when not working for the government. Free of strictures, Pollock could allow his private temperament to dominate his other paintings, but most of the works of this period, such as his 1934-38 canvas, Going West, still fall under the broad designation of the regionalist style. What Going West noticeably lacks is Benton's specificity of detail and incident. In this painting, which depicts a frontier wagon train pulled by mules, Benton's teaching principles and Pollock's admiration for his style are evidenced in other ways, most obviously in Pollock's linkage of the shapes of his composition, probably derived from a family photograph of a bridge in Cody, into a two-dimensional rhythmic pattern that loops around and turns back in on itself. Although vestigial imagery remains in The Flame and composition With Figures and Banners, both the powerful emphasis on flickering lights and darks and interlocking twisted shapes all but obscures the ostensible object. Once again, Benton's lessons have not been forgotten, despite Pollock's increasing lack of interest in anecdotal subject matter. In both of these paintings, Pollock put to good use his teacher's requirement that students learn to manipulate the spiral dynamics. Another untitled and even more non-representational composition from the same time period is less dependent on this kind of torsion, prophetically consisting of a densely clotted, chaotic jumble of brushstrokes and palette knife jabs. In July 1941, describing Jackson's new paintings such as Birth, Sand explained that Jack had finally thrown off the yoke of Benton. He was now doing work which was creative in the most genuine sense of the word, related to Max Beckmann, Orozco, and Picasso. Despite the problems he and his wife encountered in trying to take care of Jack, Sand concluded this letter with an optimistic prognosis. "We are sure that if he is able to hold himself together, his work will become of real significance." For instance, in the aforementioned Composition with Ritual Scene, such a propitiatory sacrifice is also included in the designs at Dartmouth. Pollock elaborated his fascination with the Mexicans' use of brutal subjects, or controlled violence, dredged up from the more primitive past. That Pollock was extremely interested in the scenario he developed in Naked Man can be inferred from the fact that two smaller works exist that appear to be studies for this painting. In one of these, gouache